My name is Lauren Mitchell, 32, single, childless, and recently unemployed. Just a few months ago, I was working as a technical manager at a sustainable construction firm in Austin. The salary was modest, the work meaningful, and I didn't care about being the star. I just wanted to do good work and live quietly. Then came the layoffs. No real explanation, just a vague statement that my department was no longer part of next year's plan. I packed my things in under an hour, no one said a word, and I walked out like I'd never existed. 2 months passed in a blur of freelance gigs and unanswered job applications. My savings dried up. I called home. For the first time in years, I asked to come back. My stepmother, Diane, answered. She sounded cheerful. "Of course, sweetie. I've told your dad so many times we've got room. Just stay here while you get back on your feet. That's what family's for." Family. That word didn't sit right. I remembered when Mom passed, I was 13. A year later, Diane arrived. Soft, spoken, elegant, always with a smile. And she had Brittany, her daughter same age as me, bright and bubbly, always introduced as our little girl. I, on the other hand, was always his daughter from before. Still, I convinced myself that things would be different now. I returned home on a drizzly afternoon, towing 2 suitcases and a flicker of hope. Dad hugged me tight. Diane smiled warmly and pointed me to the guest room. Brittany was upstairs. My room, still painted in the soft blush pink from high school, welcomed me like a faint memory. I unpacked quietly, vowing not to be a burden. I helped with meals, cleaned, kept out of the way. Dad was pleased to have me home. He shared stories, gave me gas money in secret. Diane, though polite, never truly looked at me. One Monday morning, as I was editing my resume, she knocked. "Lauren," she said sweetly, "Brittany's live streaming business is really taking off. She needs a quiet space. We're thinking maybe you could move to the storage room by the kitchen. It's just temporary." I blinked. "But I'm staying in this room." She tilted her head. "Well, technically, it's not really your room anymore, but we'll make it work." I didn't argue. I moved into the damp, windowless storage space with a metal cot. Nobody asked if I was okay. I stopped counting how many jobs I applied to. One day, I came back from a networking coffee to find Brittany setting up in my makeshift room. "Mum said you'd be fine moving to the couch," she said, unbothered. That night, I lay on the living room sofa, blanket pulled tight, heart hollow. Dad was away. Diane said nothing. I was invisible. But as I stared at the blinking router lights, something inside me stirred. I wasn't meant to live like this. The next morning, I found an old interview email from a sustainable architecture firm in Colorado Springs. They invited me for a second meeting. I quietly borrowed Diane's car, packed a dress shirt, and left. 3.5 hours later, I stood in front of a cabin-like office wrapped in wildflowers and pine trees. The director, Ethan, didn't ask why I was jobless. He asked what I was looking for. "A place that feels like mine," I said. He nodded. "If you can handle the silence and start over, what's yours will find you." I drove back feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Breath. A week later, I got the offer. Modest pay, benefits, relocation support, and most importantly, a fresh start. I called a local realtor. "I want to buy that lakeside cabin you showed me last month," I said. It was the one Diane had once pointed out on her iPad, saying, "One day I'll have a home like that." I didn't say anything back then. But now I was buying it not to prove a point, but to reclaim my life. I moved out quietly, leaving a note. "Found a new place. No need for the couch. Lauren." The house was old, mossy, and leaky, but I scrubbed, painted, fixed what I could with my own hands. After 3 weeks, I invited my new co-workers over for tea and cookies. That's when Diane showed up uninvited, smiling. "I saw a little gathering. Thought you might have forgotten to send my invite." She handed me a candle and a book on minimalist living. "Suited your style," she said, then turned to Ethan. "We're so proud of Lauren. Quiet, but full of potential." I couldn't hold back. I raised my glass. "Since we're being honest," I said, 3 months ago, I was sleeping on a couch by the Wi-Fi router. Before that, in a storage room because I wasn't bringing value. No one asked if I was okay. "The room froze," Diane stammered. "You misunderstood." "No," I said. This home, the one you dreamed of, is mine now. I didn't buy it for revenge. I bought it because I deserve a life that's truly mine." Diane placed the gift on the table and left. I didn't follow, because for the first time I wasn't the one leaving. The house slowly came alive under my hands. Every stroke of paint, every nail hammered, felt like patching something deeper than drywall. It wasn't just a renovation, it was a quiet reclamation of self-worth. For the first time in years, I wasn't tiptoeing. I wasn't asking for space. I owned it. I breathed freely. The silence around the lake became my rhythm. The creaking floors, the breeze sifting through the cracks, even the distant sound of ducks on the water, it all grounded me. Diane didn't call. Dad texted once, apologizing in his usual roundabout way. "I should have said something earlier. I hate conflict, but I'm proud of you." I didn't respond. I wasn't angry. I had just outgrown the need for their permission. Then one afternoon, Brittany texted, just one sentence. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while. Part of me wanted to delete it. But I replied, "Meet me by the Lake Cafe at 3. No drama, just truth." She arrived 5 minutes late. No makeup, hair pulled into a messy bun, hoodie and jeans instead of her usual polished look. She sat down slowly, holding her coffee like a lifeline. "I'm sorry," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought you were fine. You never said anything." I looked at her not with anger, but with clarity. No one should have to scream just to be seen in their own home. She nodded. "Mom always pushed me to shine. I guess I thought if I stayed bright enough, no one would look too closely." I ignored your silence. We sat quietly for a moment, the lake shimmering behind us. "I applied to architecture school," she said. "I want to try, not for Mom, for me. You made me believe I could." I let out a soft laugh. "Belief's expensive, but worth it." She smiled. "Do you forgive me?" I thought about it. Forgiveness wasn't a switch, it was a path. If you're willing to walk forward, I won't shut the door behind me. That day didn't fix everything, but it was the start of something real. Brittany began visiting, sometimes helping with small projects, bringing sketches, showing parts of herself I'd never seen before. She didn't talk about Diane much, and I didn't ask. We were both too busy building something new. Months passed. I kept working at the firm. I started designing tiny cabins for solo travelers' spaces that, like me, just needed someone to believe in them. And then, one rainy afternoon, I found myself sitting by the fireplace, reading a letter from Dad. Not an email, but an actual handwritten note. "Lauren, I know I wasn't strong enough to stand up for you. I let silence do harm. But seeing what you've built, I'm in awe. I don't expect you to forgive me quickly, but I hope you'll let me try. When you're ready. Love, Dad." I didn't cry. I just closed the letter and stared at the fire, feeling its warmth settle into my bones. That night, I made tea, sat by the window, and realized something simple but powerful. I had stopped waiting for people to come save me. I had saved myself. The next spring, I hosted a small gathering. Not a party, just a celebration of survival. My co-workers came, my neighbours, Brittany with her awkward blueprints. Even Ethan showed up with a bottle of wine. There was laughter in the kitchen, muddy shoes on the porch, and someone playing guitar in the corner. And for the first time, I felt it not just peace, but joy. I looked around at the home I had resurrected. the people who saw me, the life I had shaped with scraped knees and stubborn heartbeats. I wasn't a guest anymore. I wasn't asking to be included. I belonged. No one needed to hand me a place. I had built one, brick by brick, choice by choice, and I knew this was only the beginning. Summer rolled in slowly, painting the lake in golden hues and stretching the days longer, softer. My cabin had transformed no longer just a project or a symbol of defiance, but a home that hummed with purpose. The walls bore the fingerprints of my healing. Every repaired window, every refinished cabinet whispered, "You made it." My days followed a gentle rhythm, now morning coffee on the porch, work at the design firm, afternoons sketching new ideas, and evenings watching the sun sink behind the trees. One quiet Friday evening, a letter arrived. No return address. Just Lauren, written in neat cursive. I opened it slowly, heart already bracing. It was from Diane. She wrote, "I've watched from afar and realized I never truly saw you. I painted you as distant because it was easier than facing my own failings. Brittany told me what she learned from you, how strength doesn't always shout, and silence isn't surrender. I know I can't erase what I did or said or didn't say. But if you ever find space in your heart, I'd like to talk, not as your father's wife, but as someone who failed to see your worth. I'm sorry." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer knot, out of anger, but out of clarity. Not every apology needs a reply. Some things belong in the past, not because they didn't matter, but because they no longer control the future. Fall came, crisp and amber. I began teaching weekend workshops at a nearby community college intro to sustainable design. I met people who had failed and started over, who built new lives from what others saw as ruins. One of my students was a single mom rebuilding after divorce. Another was a retired veteran learning to turn pain into architecture. I didn't teach from textbooks. I taught from my own cracks, my own rebuild. One weekend, Brittany joined the class as a guest speaker. She showed her early sketches messy, full of colour, bold. "I used to think silence meant someone was fine," she told the class. "But now I know some silences are just people holding themselves together." Afterward, we sat on the porch, sipping cider. "You know," she said, "Mom's still trying to figure herself out." I nodded. "Aren't we all?" She looked at me. "But you figured out how to stop waiting for someone else to give you a seat at the table. You just built your own." I smiled. "And now I invite who I want." We laughed. It wasn't bitter. It was freeing. Winter crept in, blanketing the lake in stillness. I spent the holidays alone and not lonely, just present. I baked cookies, sent out handwritten cards to co-workers and neighbours, lit a fire and let the quiet wrap around me like a promise. No chaos, no pretending, just me, in a life I carved from wreckage. On New Year's morning, I stood at the edge of the lake, barefoot on the frosted dock, watching the mist rise from the water. I whispered a thank you not to any one person, but to every version of myself that had chosen to stay, to try again, to believe there was more. I had no resolutions, no dramatic plans. Just a quiet vow, never again would I shrink to fit into someone else's comfort. This was my life, raw and rebuilt, scarred and sacred, and for the first time, I wasn't hoping to be seen. I was seeing myself, and that was more than enough.